I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. It's been a long day.
It has.
We just walked into the house from our little vacation to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long day because our flight was delayed some 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then with the time difference and making our way home, LAX being a shit show. So LAX has an offsite rideshare location, which can be difficult to get to if you're not at if you're not at gate 1 if you're not at terminal 1 or terminal 7, then you have to take a shuttle there, which can take forever.
Well, you can walk. I usually just do that, but
that's
it's
not
about
a reasonable walk. So that can take forever. So then I always just call Uber Black because the black cars can just come to the terminal to pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it took like 40 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And we could see that the car was like 0.5, like it was at the entrance to the airport, but traffic wasn't moving. So all of that shouldn't cloud a lovely trip. Neither of us had been to Hawaii.
No.
So, Hawaii's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean,
it's kind of breathtaking. I mean, not kind of, it is. We went to the Waimea Botanical Gardens,
mm-hmm.
and that was, I felt like I was in a movie.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
In fact, several movies have been shot.
Well,
many things have been shot in Hawaii, on all of the islands, and for good reason, because it feels like paradise.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed in an interesting area, in a beautiful, like, luxury community, like gated, but it was kind of far away from everything.
It definitely was.
So I felt isolated, but we did make our way in to Honolulu and Waikiki.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that in the restaurant section. But some highlights for me were the botanical gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was fun seeing you in the ocean. You were like a little kid.
I like being in the ocean.
You were doing this thing where it was like you were like, I don't know if you were trying to pretend like what would a corpse be doing in the water, but
that was a joke I made, but yeah.
Because you would just kind of like sit. How do you call that area where the water
where the water meets the shore?
Yeah, like how the tide comes up onto the shore. You were just kind of laying your body there and letting it take you back and forth. And you seemed happy.
It was pretty strong.
So that was fun.
It moves you around. I also probably got some exfoliation from that.
What were some things that come to mind?
Well, we were in the car a lot.
There was a lot of driving.
And my family doesn't really wake up early, so I think if there were main stressors, it was kind of getting everybody together to do things in a timely fashion. But yeah, I think the ocean was my favorite part, and of course, I like going out to eat. And we I think the best meal. Well, I guess we can talk about that later. But I really liked one meal we had, which was kind of almost by accident.
We'll talk about it. And then at the airport leaving, an actress recognized you.
Oh, Rena Owen, yeah.
From the film Once Were Warriors.
Yes, which we did a Patreon review of.
Yeah, and she was lovely.
Yeah, very lovely. I think I mentioned her in that because she was at a Q&A I did for an Indian film at the end of 2023 called Gangubai Kathiawadi. And I was doing a Q&A with that director because was it India's? It must have been India's official selection or maybe not. I don't know. It's because randomly I do some of those interviews, but she was there. And then of course in the prep time, while I was meeting with the director before the film ended, I was introduced to her and we had a lovely conversation then. And yeah, she remembered me and we talked about that. And she said that she was in Hawaii because she was filming the live action version of Moana.
So that's cool.
Yeah. And the airport in Honolulu is small. So we kind of kept bumping into her and she kept talking to me for a minute.
Shout out to the Honolulu airport is set up very nicely. Like the rental car place is very like you can walk. It reminded me of like what McCarran Airport used to be like. So I did enjoy the Honolulu Airport. Shout out to Budget Rental for giving us the most raggedy.
I don't know. I know nothing about cars, and almost immediately
Nick
upon
knows nothing about cars, doesn't take care of his shit, doesn't notice obvious shit in his own car. But when he said this, we got a minivan to accommodate everyone, and it was a Chrysler Pacifica, like a 2023. And as soon as Nick got in the car, he's like, "This doesn't feel right."
I'm like, it's trembling.
And you know that's bad.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that shit was like, at one point we were driving and it just went dead.
Yeah, so I think that added to the stress because we had to drive long. Actually, the mileage wasn't long. It's just that it's really kind of difficult driving around on Oahu.
It kind of reminded me of when I lived in Miami and going from like South Beach to South Miami, and that you're just on Highway 1, and just depending on the weather and traffic, it could take forever. And that, like, I remember feeling the same anxiety then. Like, I feel stuck and there are no other options. Can't really get around this.
Yeah. And of course, you did all the driving.
But that Budget, y'all should be ashamed. That car was all the lights. There were many times because I would get in to get the car ready to go, like turn the air on, and the car wouldn't start. And I didn't tell anyone that because I didn't want anyone to be stressed out.
Well, I knew.
But the car wouldn't start, and then like the shifter wouldn't work. Like it would literally say like shifter service, and it just wouldn't illuminate. So I would have to just fiddle with it. So that added to the stress. But while we were out there, I watched the Mike Tyson, Logan Paul fight on Netflix. Is that his name? Logan Paul?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And I have to say, I got emotional watching it because I felt bad. Like, I'm sure, I mean, this is late. Like, everyone's probably seen it already. But for those who didn't, Logan Paul won through decision. And the fight was pretty sleepy, especially when we saw, because Tyson had been training for many months, and at one point he had injured his arm, and so he stopped, and then they postponed the fight, and then we saw him training, and he was fast. I mean, he was fighting in a fashion that we were accustomed to. But then on the Netflix bout, they both seemed like they were there to entertain us. Like they weren't really trying to beat each other up. They weren't really trying to knock each other out, even though they were talking all that shit. But it felt a little sleepy, and it was hard to see Mike Tyson that way, having grown up watching him fight. I remember watching fights with my dad and people paying for pay-per-view, and him just being a badass. And to see him, there were many moments where it's like, you could have knocked this fool out. So it felt more like something that was just meant to entertain, and they can collect their big checks.
Cash grab.
But the fight before Tyson were two women fighters, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. And that shit was so good. It was so good. Those two were fighting for real. And that, the Katie Taylor, because I guess it was a rematch between these two. I don't follow boxing. I don't ever watch it, but my sister recommended we watch this fight, and it was worth it. Katie Taylor won through decision, but I thought Amanda should have taken it. So for people who don't watch boxing on Netflix, I would recommend, the entire event is like 4.5 hours. You can fast forward to like a 3-hour mark and watch the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight. That was one hell of a fight. And
I did not watch it.
No.
Because I don't watch boxing.
Moving on to the restaurant section. So I think both of our favorite place was a place called Hot Pot Heaven.
Yep.
And apparently it's a chain. We only went to the one, but when I looked it up, there was another one. So I had never had Hot Pot, but basically you buy a broth and then you buy a bunch of meats and vegetables and different things to put into the broth to cook. And that shit was so good. This particular place, you had to be given the meats, but everything else you just go pick out of a refrigerator, and everything's color coded. So at the end of the meal, they just charge you based on the color of your plates. But what really sent it over was, it was BYOB. And I had never eaten in a place like that. And the server was so friendly, and we tried to order beer, and he's like, "Oh, we don't serve that, but we're BYOB." And I'm like, "For real?" He's like, "Yeah, there's like a Safeway and a Target across the street if you want to go get something." So we went across the street and bought a bunch of alcohol, came back, and that was one of the better meals I've had in a very long time. The food was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I mean, I've had hot pot before, but not. It's mostly everything is already in it and to go. Like I've gone to a place in Berlin, but I've never had this experience. And I'm willing to bet that the BYOB thing is not something.
it's not common.
Is definitely not common.
But that was, I mean,
because we were right across the street from a Safeway, and we loaded up.
man, if there was something like this nearby, I feel like I would eat there 3-4 times a week. Because also for 7 people, the bill was like $150.
Yeah,
and we ate.
yeah.
So yeah, if I end up back in Honolulu, I'm going to hot pot heaven. But for your birthday, we tried a restaurant called Fete, and it's like
Fete.
Oh, Fete. It's a James Beard rated restaurant, and the area it was in was really cute. It reminded me of like the French Quarter in New Orleans, and the restaurant itself was cute. It was kind of in a block that had other restaurants that were connected in the back and shared a bathroom. It was a vibe that I really liked.
Wait, how was I wasn't even paying attention to it. Was Fete?
Fete
With the little
accent
Fete.
somewhere.
Okay, so Fete.
So it's called Fete.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Fete?
I think it was overpriced, but it's one of the, it's one of those nicer restaurants where they're kind of almost overly aggressive with the service, which is not bad. But in the server was very good at his job, but he had to repeat. There were basically like 7 specials that he had to repeat twice because it was loud in there. And it's like, God, this is a lot of talking.
It was mind numbing because it was loud in there. And like you said, 7 specials, but he just didn't say like, oh, Korean fried chicken,
no.
steak tartare. No, he was describing every item in great detail. Like he was on autopilot and you couldn't shut him up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I know you can't hear me on the other side of the table, so I'll come back and repeat it. So I'd listened to it twice and it was just mind numbing.
Yes.
But, he said, I really like my job. And it's like, okay, great. But I agree with you. I thought it was very overpriced.
Uh-huh.
The food was okay.
The food was okay. I got shrimp. The crispy shrimp. Everything was included on the shrimp. The tail, the head. And I think that's the first time I ate shrimp heads. And I would recommend, and I didn't really want to eat that part of it, but I did discover that when you do eat the shrimp like that, you should eat it all at once. Don't eat the heads alone.
Why?
Because to me, they had a funny taste.
Well, I don't mess with shrimp, so I'm surprised you did all that.
Well, it's okay to try new ways of new things, but and they told me that it would be prepared like that ahead of time, but it was almost like a dare, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'll try that.
Then we had time to kill before we went to this restaurant. So we found a bar called Wild Orange, not knowing that it was a speakeasy.
Not advertised as such.
I mean, getting there was calamitous. It was like 0.3 miles away and we spent an hour. And then, we're with a couple senior citizens, some people who are a little grouchy, don't want to move. And it's like, it was, I feel like I'm going to have a nightmare about that experience, getting to Wild Orange. But we finally find it after we had to split up a little bit.
Well, yeah, because I could tell some people were getting cranky, and then it's just like, fine, I will, because it was clear after some misdirection that it was inside of this greater complex, that it had this 24-hour fitness, but it looked like you had to find another way in. So I toured the whole perimeter, the outside perimeter, and that was like 4 blocks. And it took
And it
me.
ended up being that you walked to like 4 blocks. So we thought, and then you weren't responding. So then it's like, what happened to Nick? We're all waiting. Everyone's irritated. And then the complex, like you said, when we finally realize where it is, you have to walk through like a 24-hour fitness
Like passageways of the gym.
passageway of the gym through a parking lot. And then you get to this kind of sketchy entrance. And the security person, who was very like Cro-Magnon, just kind of asked for ID, and then he's like, well, do you know where it is? No.
No, girl.
And then he gave us these raggedy.
Yeah, he was like, go down, take a right. When you see a vending machine, push the door in next to it. And there were 2 vending machines, one a real one.
And then there was an employee who was like, you're getting colder, hotter. And it's like,
that was sending me. Like,
oh, I was so annoyed. It's like, okay, I get that, like, I don't know. Do you want business? Like, there are 7 people here trying to buy drinks. Like, do you want us to buy drinks or not? I was so annoyed. And if it weren't for the fact that it was already difficult to get to, I would have smooth walked out. But we finally make our way in. And I do have to say, the space was interesting. And I think maybe 23 years ago, I would have found something like that cool.
mm-hmm.
But as a middle-aged man, like, that was too much. And then the structure itself felt real like dingy, and the actual wild orange is cute. It has like this Harajuku girl vibe to it, I guess. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And they were playing this like sort of like trip hop type music. We were all too old to be in there. But the server was nice. And we sat for a minute.
It was a nice respite, yes.
Then, of course, whenever you tell someone you're going somewhere, everyone has their recommendations. And a common recommendation was a restaurant called Duke's in Waikiki.
Mm-hmm.
So we drug our asses to Duke's, which, again, traveling with a number of people, getting their asses to get somewhere is not very smooth. So we finally get there. And I have to say, Duke's felt like grade A tourist trap to me.
Yep.
I don't know why anyone would recommend that.
Well, the location's great, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the thick of it. But to me, it's like, that would be like someone saying, oh, if you want to go to the beach in LA, you should go to like Venice or Santa Monica, and you should have dinner at like a restaurant like on Venice or something.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the worst. It's going to be overpriced and shitty. And that's what I thought of Duke's.
The food was okay.
Okay. I mean,
it was okay.
It was okay.
It was overpriced okay. Yeah.
But
the service, again, I have to say, everyone was very pleasant that we interacted with.
Well, I think we have a weird outlook because we live in LA. And people aren't friendly, and everyone's kind of like fake bougie. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, compared to living in LA, sure. I didn't think they were exceedingly.
Even the lady at the beach that was trying to sell me her homemade butter mochi was doing it in such a pleasant way. Like it.
And then another recommendation was a bakery called Leonard's,
mm-hmm.
which apparently is like influencer heaven, because when we pulled up to that joint, it was all like young people taking photos,
mm-hmm.
looking like they're not eating the actual baked goods they're buying.
The malasadas.
They're just buying them to take a picture with them and then throwing them in the trash. But I guess Leonard's is known for the malasadas, which
mm-hmm.
are a Portuguese donut,
mm-hmm.
which I find funny because I assumed it was like Polynesian.
Well, it's funny. I was reading because we had to wait. We got a dozen of them, and we were waiting for our order. And they have a ton of like newspaper articles and stuff posted there. And there was, I think, the creator, the originator, was on a magazine cover, and one of the blurbs on there was that this establishment and the malasada was once considered too ethnic by Hawaiian standards to sell to the tourists. And
really,
yeah.
I find that crazy because a malasada ain't nothing but a jelly-filled donut, sugar-coated. That's all it is.
But they were very good.
I'm not a huge fan of that kind of thing.
Oh, the guava one was pretty mint.
But they were okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why people like them. But if I'm going to get a donut, it's usually not that kind of donut. So,
if you like ube, Hawaii's heaven. There was ube everywhere.
Yeah.
We even went to Costco and I found ube ice cream. I couldn't really convince anybody else staying with us that was something delicious, but I enjoyed it.
Wow. Moving on. There is something to the sorry to this man section. You talked about a movie, I think maybe Breakup Season. It was something starring Brooke Hogan.
Oh yeah.
And someone let me know that the Brooke Hogan in that movie is not the
Oh, it's not the Brooke Hogan?
No.
Oh, damn. Okay. Well, see, I haven't seen it. So, okay.
So shout out to the Brooke Hogan in whatever movie you were talking
I
about.
saw that little girl's name and I was like, oh, well, that's
This lady looks more mature.
I didn't look at her picture, anything.
Yeah, but she's not
Well, okay. I mean, I would change.
She's not Hulk Hogan's
If
daughter.
Vanessa L. Williams had to use a middle initial, girl, you need to use a middle
I don't
initial.
think Brooke Hogan's famous enough to, like, Hulk Hogan's daughter is famous enough to warrant actor Brooke Hogan change her name.
If somebody's famous child had the same name as me, I would, and I was going to try to be a public figure, I would use my middle initial.
She also spells it differently.
Well, okay.
But films released we didn't cover, something called Flow.
Flow, I saw this at Cannes and I really liked it. I think it was in my top 10 in our rundown video of that by Gintz Zilbalodis. And it is being submitted as, I'm forgetting which country now, is their kind of international selection. But it's an animated film basically about this cat that, and there's no dialogue, that's surviving this kind of drowned world tour with a bunch of other animals, but it's actually quite moving and a lot of fun.
Joy.
Ben Taylor directed this. It stars Bill Nighy and Thomasin McKenzie, and I think it's loosely based on the development of the first test tube baby.
Oh, that used to be an insult back in the day.
Well, so
like you're just nothing but a test tube baby.
That was the description, the IMDb description. So maybe that's not,
No. I mean, I just recall people saying it like that was an insult.
Yes, like that's it to me. That if someone called me that, it would seem demeaning. But whatever. We can't help how we're made. That it was a Netflix release.
Lastly, Never Look Away.
Lucy Lawless directed this documentary about war photojournalism, and I believe the focus is Christiane Amanpour.
Oh, okay.
Am I saying her name right even?
Sure. Are you trying to verify that?
Amanpour. Yeah, I don't know why her name always kind of like, ugh.
Projects of interest, Stitches.
Alice Vanacour, the French director, her last film was supposed to have Nicole Kidman in it, but I think the pandemic stopped that, and I think Virginia Fira was the star of it instead. But she has booked Angelina Jolie for her next film, Stitches, aka Couture, which is Jolie plays a woman that's one of several characters that intersect dramatically during Fashion Week.
And then
it's untitled, but Jesse Eisenberg's his third feature, A Real Pain, was just released, his second feature, and we reviewed his first one, When You're Finished Saving the World, which I believe we both liked. And I've seen A Real Pain, and I did like that well enough. But he's doing a musical, and he's reuniting with Julianne Moore, who's in his first film, and Paul Giamatti.
I wanted to say that we received a really nice message from a lady named Sarah who listens to our podcast and watches our YouTube videos. I didn't see the message soon enough because it got sent to like one of those folders on Instagram that I don't get notifications for. But enough with excuses. She mentioned that she and her daughter were in LA a couple of weeks ago for her daughter's modeling showcase, and she wanted us to shout her out. So I'm going to shout out Kaylin. I hope that it went well.
Same, yes.
And not like when Barbizon would have cost us at the mall back in the 90s. But Kaylin sounds like she has a really sweet mom.
Yeah,
so that's nice.
I agree.
And then moving on to something sad, there is an entry in the obituary section. Chuck Woolery died.
Oh, that's right. I forgot already. I mean, it was a busy week.
He was 83. He's known for Love Connection.
Yep.
That's how I remember him. And if you look him up, he's had some interesting thoughts on a number of things, which I won't bring up at the moment. But I do have fond memories of Love Connection. My mom had a friend who was on Love Connection.
Oh my God.
So when I was a kid, I remember thinking that was the coolest show.
My grandpa would tape it.
Really?
The one that was supposedly super Christian. Yeah, he loved Love Connection.
That's kind of weird.
Yep. There were lots of creepy, weird undercurrents.
All right. The secret movie this week was your choice, and you chose the 1985 American black comedy crime film Prizzi's Honor, directed by John Huston, starring Jack Nicholson, Kathleen Turner, and Angelica Houston.
And William Hickey and Robert Loggia.
Sure. Why did you choose this movie?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and I had very fond memories of it. And my mom had the book by Richard Condon, who also very famously wrote The Manchurian Candidate, amongst several other things. And I'm a big Jack Nicholson fan. I'm probably a bigger Kathleen Turner fan, and I've been meaning to rewatch it for a long time now. We have a friend. They're a couple that I thought were uber Kathleen Turner fans, but it turns out they're just obsessed with Serial Mom. So at one point, probably like 2 years ago, there was talks of having this as a movie night film. But anyway, we had to watch something, and I wanted to make it something that everybody in the group also was enthusiastic about somewhat. And out of the three that I gave them, this was the one that won. And I also was very intrigued to see this marketed as a comedy, because the comedic element was definitely not in my memory about it at all.
The IMDb premise says two professional assassins fall in love. It's very simple, which I find funny because the plot's a little convoluted to me. I remember seeing a movie in the video store called Prizzi's Honor. If you would have asked me prior to yesterday, I would have said that it's the movie with Julia Roberts and the pizza place.
Mystic Pizza.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think Mystic Pizza and Prizzi's Honor are the same movie in my mind. I do like Jack Nicholson. Of course, I like Kathleen Turner. And of course, I like Angelica Houston.
You know, another memory I have of this, when I first started dating you, and you would work, you were working overnight 7 nights in a row. And so I wouldn't see you on those nights. And so we would email a lot back and forth. And you had told me you were a big Angelica Houston fan. And so, you know, years later, that you clearly know this is how I operate. Like, oh, then you have to see all these Angelica Houston films. And I remember specifically asking you if you'd seen Prizzi's Honor.
And what did I say?
Hell no.
Yeah.
You know what I was talking about.
I don't even know why I would have said I'm a big fan of hers, because I don't know what movie I would have known of hers.
It took me a long time to realize that people make casual remarks about people they love. That is just as, you know.
I'm not that frivolous, but I think
you aren't. I'm not trying to say that.
No, but so that's why I'm curious. Like, why would I say that? Because I don't even know what I would have known her for, except The Witches, maybe.
Or but even then, Addams Family, probably.
Maybe I was an Addams Family fan.
I don't know why. I don't remember why we started talking about Angelica, but I remember, of course, you know, trying to share my expertise.
Okay, the plot, there's a lot going on. Jack Nicholson plays this hitman for a New York mafia family, and the family is called, like, their last name is Prizzi. And sort of like the patriarch of the family is Don Corrado Prizzi, who's played by
William Hickey.
And child, I think the funniest part of the movie is that they have William Hickey playing this decrepit mob boss.
William Hickey never looked young ever, and they clearly have him aged a bit, but it blows my mind that he's only like 57 here.
And he looks like someone who, I'm not going to say their name, but he reminds me of them, and I'm going to mouth it to you.
Oh, yes.
Doesn't he look like him?
Yeah.
He's younger than you are, and looks as decrepit as...
It looks like they scraped Nosferatu out of the coffin and propped him up. That's how William.
And then your dad was like, his teeth look like raisins, and they kind of like golden raisins.
I recently watched U-Turn with Billy Bob Thornton's grill, and that is about as bad as this. It's putrid.
Okay,
and he got an Oscar nod for this, his one and only.
Oh God! And then y'all need to stop smoking cigarettes, because this character sounds like he sounds like he looks like emphysema. Like if emphysema were a person, it would be this character.
If Big Mouth had personified emphysema, it would have been William Hickey.
Okay, so Jack Nicholson is this hitman for this family, the Prizzi family.
Mhm.
And the opening of the film is Jack goes to a wedding. And he sees a beautiful non-Italian woman
Mhm.
played by Kathleen Turner. And he doesn't know who she is. So he asks someone like, hey, can you know,
Take some pictures of her for me.
and so he meets her and instantly falls in love. Like instantly. And they get married. Okay. So Jack Nicholson's job is a hitman, right? So then he gets told one day, like, oh, there's some people who work for us who stole some money from a casino, $720,000. We need you to go get it in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, LA.
It's in LA, but I think that it happened in Vegas.
The theft happened in Vegas. But so Jack Nicholson goes from New York to LA, goes and finds the man.
Mark C. Heller, was that his name?
Kills him, but can't find the money.
Mm-hmm.
So he's waiting for the wife to come home. And when the wife comes home, guess who it is? Kathleen Turner. And of course he's shocked and she's like, oh, I don't know anything. Well, maybe, you know, she's running game and she's like, well, he had this suitcase and maybe the money's in here. And it turns out half the money's in there. But then the family, the Prizzi family tells Jack Nicholson, you need to find the other half of that money. Okay, Angelica Houston is the daughter of one of like the Prizzi brothers, because there's the Don Corrado who's like the main guy, but then he has 3 sons, and one of those sons, his daughter is Angelica Houston,
Lee Richardson. Mm-hmm.
And she's been disowned from the family because she's brought shame because she was engaged to Jack Nicholson and broke off the engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure why that's so shameful, but it is.
Well, because of his standing. He's basically positioned, because we get his kind of origin story into the family, much like the Ray Liotta character in Goodfellas. Like or Robert Duvall in Godfather, this outsider that is kind of makes his way into equal footing.
But Angelica comes to learn, she gets back in with her dad, and then she's trying to stir the pot. So she basically tells her dad that Jack Nicholson like kind of had his way with her. And then she tells the Don Corrado that Kathleen Turner's responsible for having the money stolen.
Uh-huh.
So she's trying to do Jack Nicholson in. But the Don is like, no, Jack Nicholson's my godson. I'm not going to hurt him. So
I'll find another way.
And so he decides to tell Kathleen Turner. So the Don tells Kathleen Turner, I want all my money back. That's $720,000 plus 50% interest.
Well, the 360 that she had and plus 50%.
Right.
Yeah.
So in total, she's given them like $900,000
Mm-hmm.
So she agrees. But then behind the scenes, the family is telling Jack Nicholson, you're going to be the new Don because one of the brothers has been killed.
Mm-hmm.
Another brother is like a dummy. So the Don has sent him like away. So, and then the Don is like one cough away from dying. So they need someone to run the family business. And the only person who's qualified is Jack Nicholson. So they tell him.
Which is funny because Charlie Partan is kind of dumb too.
Okay, we need to talk about that because you said that when we finished the movie, and I don't know that I saw that, but maybe you can help me see it. So Jack says, okay, but then they say, your wife, like, you need to take her ass out. Like, the second has to be dealt with.
Well, you're also forgetting a major subplot,
which is
Jack Nicholson was also assigned to kill this man that was stealing from the bank. And
oh my God, yeah, there's this side plot. Oh, actually, you're right. That is important to what I'm about to say. The man who was stealing, there was a man who was stealing from a bank that the Prizzi family owns part of.
Filargi.
And so they decide that instead of like killing him and getting some of that money, what they're going to do is basically frame him, like kidnap him, frame him, so that
Because the kidnapping money is covered by insurance.
right, and then ultimately, like after the kidnapping, and then they're going to frame him for insurance fraud. Then the Prizzi family can take his stake in the bank and then ultimately have a controlling interest. And then that could potentially earn them like $70 million. So they're very interested in this scheme. But when they go to do the kidnapping, Jack Nicholson brings along Kathleen Turner because she's a professional too. And in the melee, she ends up killing the wife of the police chief. So that is bad, 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 because the police tell the Prizzi family, like, listen, because they're in cahoots, right? But they say, we can't let this slide. Like, you killed the wife of like the police chief. So we're basically going to punish you for that. Like, you're not going to get any protection from us until you deal with what happened. So that's part of why Kathleen Turner has to go. And she knows that. But Jack tries to trick her and say, like, oh, the family says you're in.
And you can get your money,
And they're going to give you all your money back because they know that I love you. And you can hear in his voice and she can tell that that's bullshit. So she plans to escape to Hong Kong the next day. But Jack Nicholson flies from New York to LA that night before she can leave. Because she can't leave she can't leave that night because she has to go to the bank the next day to get money from a safe deposit box. So he shows up at her house. And then there's like a final like duel. And to spoil it, Jack kills Kathleen. He stabs her in the neck with a knife.
That scene always bummed me out because I wanted her to succeed.
And so the final scene is Jack dropping off her car like at the airport with her body in the trunk. The end.
Well, and then he calls May Rose and
and then he calls May Rose, Angelica Houston's character, to set up a date. Like they're going to get back together.
Even though her meddling had her daddy put a hit out on him.
Okay, overall, I liked a lot about this movie. I do think there is too much going on, and I was getting a little tired of like there could have been one less twist and turn for me. But I think Jack Nicholson doing his little accent is really cute. He is a very good actor.
Yes.
Of course, Kathleen Turner is great. But Angelica Houston, I thought, kind of stole the show.
Sinister. Yeah. Well, and I thought, but watching it now, like she was giving me the Violet Chachki.
Yeah, she looks like Violet Chachki. She's kind of like, she's manipulative.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fun to watch. I don't have a lot of notes, but I want to start with, why did you think Jack Nicholson was like a dummy?
Because he falls for Irene's bullshit hook, line, and sinker. And then I was also reading that John Huston, who we need to talk about the Hustons a bit, told him, who's dying at this point because he only made one more film, remember, he's stupid. He would tell him before takes. Like, I think that he there's a part of him that seems very gullible to me.
Yeah, I guess I didn't interpret, because aside from that, he seems very clever and smart. So I felt like I just didn't like their relationship. Felt so crazy to me. That he fell for her instantly, and it didn't come across as like he's gullible. To me, it felt like, oh, this is not great writing for this character. like this romance.
Well, it feels so needy because he finds her, he can't even find her identity, and she calls him, and she's like going back in LA, and he's like, oh, do you want to have lunch tomorrow? I'll fly to have lunch with you. And then basically at that lunch they confess their love for one another, and it's like, my God,
it all felt too much.
But I think that she's conniving, and I think she saw a way out of a life that maybe she didn't really like. And yes. May Rose sees this as an opportunity to get back into the life that she has been made a pariah of.
I think I would have preferred this more if we would have just focused on this hitman who's like next in line to run this crime family, and he's fallen in love with this woman who's really like two-timing him. You know, she's a hitman who's trying to get one up on him, and then you have like the mob boss's daughter who's in love with him and manipulating him. That in itself could have been a really good 2-hour movie.
Like there's so much like smushed into their romance
and unexplored
to unpack, because it's like, one, we learned that she's still married. He kills that husband.
Yeah. I feel like we could have really just spent 2 hours with that. I didn't need like the like the Vegas like money stealing and him going to get it, and then the kidnapping of the bank president, and
It-
now
there's a lot.
there is a lot. At one point, Jack says, "I'm a grown man, maybe middle aged even," and I thought, "Girl, you look like
Well,
you could get a discount coffee at McDonald's." So I don't.
because Jack's like late 50s here, but
Is he
he's,
late 50s?
I think so there, because he was born in what, 37?
Because he says he's 46,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you don't look.
Well, because Kathleen's like 31, and I believe Angelica's like 34. But well, just how they make William Hickey look, because we see Charlie as a young man getting the taking the blood pat
The blood oath. Yeah.
with the Prizzi family, and it's like, oh, he's supposed to be that much younger than William Hickey. And then Robert Loggia is playing one of Hickey's sons, and he's, I think, only 3 years younger than William Hickey in real life. So very
God,
interesting.
William Hickey looks so crazy, and the fingernails they gave him,
Oh, he looks like a vampire.
it's just all too much. But I thought that worked really well.
He's
It's unfortunate because I think there is a lot of humor. Like Angelica Houston, I think that characterization is perfect, and I think the Don Corrado, because what the reason that character works so well is because it's so ridiculous, but the actor is playing it seriously,
Mhm.
and it just works so perfectly. But then there's so much that just isn't. I think a lot of it, like, it's taking itself seriously as like this mob movie.
Yes, and it doesn't quite feel. It's not at the level of A Godfather, for instance.
No,
But John Huston is one of the greats, and I've shown you many John Huston films over the years, including his debut, I believe, which was Maltese Falcon. But of course, The African Queen. You've seen Reflections in a Golden Eye with Liz Taylor and a gay Marlon Brando. Annie, he directed. He's the only person to direct two family members to win Oscars. His dad won an Oscar for The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Walter, which John won best screenplay and best director for that, I think. And then, of course, his daughter wins for Prizzi's Honor. And of course, you were also confronted with John Huston's The Dead just a couple weeks ago, watching the new Almodovar film, which his adaptation of the James Joyce novel is referenced several times. We see a clip of that movie. But anyway, so very famously, of course, Angelica Houston wins Best Supporting Actress over Oprah Winfrey for The Color Purple, which, rewatching this now and having also recently rewatched The Color Purple, I love Angelica Houston, and I think she's very good in this, but I would have voted for Oprah.
Yeah, having watched both now, I would say Oprah had a leg up, but
And remember, she also won over Margaret Avery
for what?
for Color Purple.
Oh, Suge?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't. I guess I didn't realize that she was nominated as well, or I forgot clearly.
And then William Hickey was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He lost to Don Amici for Cocoon, which I also don't quite. I'm not a fan of Cocoon. Maybe I
Whenever I think Cocoon, I think of Jasmine Masters and that ugly ass runway. And she kept saying cocoon.
Yes. But maybe I think I'm not really a fan of Ron Howard. But anyway, in the Oscars, I guess ultimately who cares? But to me, when I saw Angelica Houston in this film, I think she's breathtaking, and I think she's beautiful.
She is.
And she is a lot of fun, and I think she is the scene stealer. Because Jack, as fun as he is also doing Jack, and but I don't know. There's a lot I really like about it. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. I do think it does feel a little bit long. Notably, I remember the VHS I had of this, and it felt very cheap. It was a very cheap quality VHS. And it's funny, the studio that put this out didn't think that it was going to be successful. So they actually rushed it to the home video market while it was still... It landed... they thought it was going to have a short theatrical run, but it ended up being like a late season hit. Like, the critics loved it, and of course it got all this Oscar love. So I guess by the time that the video hit the rental stores, it was still in theaters, which is rare.
Oh,
But to me, the poster art of it is kind of iconic. I mean, it's ingrained in my young mind, and so it was a lot of fun to rewatch this with a group. But it is a very bizarre approach to a mobster movie.
When Jack professes his love to Kathleen, there's a song playing called Noche de Ronda.
Yeah,
And it's a mariachi song. And I thought that scene was so crazy.
He's like, I'm going to remember this song forever.
This is our song. Like, okay.
Oh, and of course, Jack was with Angelica Houston romantically for many years, but never married her. And you also...
Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Well, I mean, she eventually left him. But remember that her father, who directed him in this, co-starred opposite him in Chinatown, which you watched.
John Huston is in Chinatown?
Yeah, he's Faye Dunaway's father.
Oh, that's John. Wow.
That's
okay.
John Huston. Yeah.
I'm sure. Did we review Chinatown for Patreon?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So I'm sure I had already come to this realization.
So I
don't remember.
I want to say I think there was some awkwardness between Houston and Nicholson then, because that's when he was maybe first starting to see Angelica. But
when Angelica tells her dad that Jack kind of took advantage of her and she's being explicit about it, like, he screwed me multiple times, and the dad's like, how can you talk to your father like that? Angelica gets her dad like so worked up that he becomes sick with like this bad news.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like having like a heart attack, and then she goes to give him a glass. She pretends to fill a glass with water, but she really fills it with grappa, which is this alcohol.
Grappa is very strong.
And like makes him really ill.
He drinks half that shit before he realizes.
I don't know how he drank so much without realizing it was alcohol.
That is a great scene. But also the sex scene with her and Nicholson. Think of it like her dad directing that sex scene.
Well, we don't see the sex scene.
No, but it's like her sitting down. She's like, you want to do sex? You want to do sex with me on this oriental rug?
Yeah. She looks pretty though.
She's beautiful.
And then she tries to make herself look ugly and tired when her dad agrees to see her. And I thought that the best scene with her is that scene where she walks into the dining room and she's kind of like hunched over.
She changes her posture.
And she changed her posture, and then she had painted like raccoon eyes, which, I mean, she still looks really pretty. It just looks like she's not wearing lipstick, but the way she's acting all dowdy.
What's funny is I just watched Coppola's Gardens of Stone for the first time recently with She Is In, and there's a whole bit about character definition via oriental rugs with the James Caan character who collects them, who's also in a relationship with her. Anyway, but yeah, that is, I think that is her best scene. But my
favorite line from Don Corrado with that emphysema voice is he's telling Jack about Kathleen and he's screaming like, she's a hitter and a thief. What is your answer? It's like, oh my God. For some reason, I thought he was so cute.
He is in a very grotesque way.
It was also, I thought it was kind of driving me mad that the characters, specifically Kathleen and Jack, are talking about thousands of dollars, but they're saying like hundreds. So they would say like 900, but they mean 900,000. But then the subtitles, the closed captioning would say the full amount. For some reason, that bothered me. Oh, so the car that Kathleen drove is an Excalibur. This really cool looking car. And she tells Jack like, oh, it's kind of an investment because... Well, she says that it was made by the Japanese in England for the Arab market, and that she got it brought to the US and like for this dollar amount, but in a couple of years it'll be worth so much more. But in actuality, that car was an American car made in Milwaukee. So I think it's funny that she has this like sort of like
elaborate story
for this car. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. I agree that it feels a little long. I think the biggest crime is that there's such a great farce within this movie, which is this love triangle. And I just hate that they try to make it like a mob movie and have this complicated ass like...
It could have been more like that other Angelica Houston movie, Enemies: A Love Story.
What's the one with her and Woody in the Woody Allen movie?
Oh, Manhattan Murder Mystery. No, she's in that Crimes and Misdemeanors. Whether she's killed.
I remember liking that movie.
Yeah, she's very good in that.
But anyway, she's a joy. Like, if you like Jack or Kathleen or Angelica, you have to watch this movie. Also, I think seeing what's his name, William Hickey played Don Corrado is really funny.
And Lawrence Tierney has a small part, and it's what's funny, on the same family vacation that we watched this, we watched Silver Bullet, another 1985 movie that Lawrence Tierney's featured in. He doesn't have much to do in it.
Oh, and CCH Pounder's in it as this like lady named Peaches who gives Jack Nicholson some info.
Well, she gives May Rose the message. Remember, he calls her about Irene.
And he's like, give me a name. I'll make sure to send you $10 or $20.
I was hoping we'd get back to her because I was very confused about her relationship with May Rose.
I just think this movie has too much going on.
Yeah, that's true.
But as it is, what would you give Prizzi's honor?
And don't forget, there's a young Stanley Tucci in a like blink it or miss role.
I didn't see him.
And the guy that wrote Green Book, Nick Vallelonga, plays an arsonist. Anyway, I would give Prizzi's honor 3.5.
I think it's very good. I would give it 3.5 out of 5. I'm pretty tired, and I don't know what's going on next week. I know I'm seeing one movie for sure.
Yeah,
Queer, and that might be all.
I'm not sure.
And then it's Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so we won't record again until after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope everyone. I'm not a fan of really any holidays, and I always feel bad for the kind of holidays where people are expected to be with family or loved ones, because a lot of people don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be a sad time.
Yes, it can be a very trying time.
So I hope that people find a way to enjoy it, even by themselves, on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Ta-ta.